What's up YouTube, Capital G here talking Nekroz in this video, and I've got to apologize to the deck and to the people who played the deck, I guess, since Secret Forces was released, for some of the things that I may have said or thought about the deck and or its players. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Nekroz was it was the dominant deck, it was the best deck pretty much until just recently, after Konami kind of slammed it for a third time by the ban list. And yeah, a lot of the hatred that I had towards the blue deck wasn't even because of the deck itself. It was just because of how dominant the deck was. It was on the verge of being tier 0, and generally being an anti-meta type player like I am, I generally just hate whatever the best deck is at the time. It doesn't even matter what the deck is, if it's Exceed, Synchro, Fusion, whatever. I have an automatic disdain for the deck. But on Saturday's stream, I decided to play Nekroz, and this was the version that was given to me. Actually, there was I think I changed like 2 or 3 cards in the deck, but this was the version that I played of the deck all night. And usually when I stream, I will build a deck, or well, I don't build a lot of decks. I'll find a build of the deck and then I'll test it, usually first, second duel of the night, and then maybe I'll play it like once or twice throughout the stream. And a lot of decks, they may have some cool combos, and there'll be some older decks where I'm like, okay, I automatically realize playing this for 2 seconds that it's been power creeped and it's like it can't contend with the meta. And a lot of times the decks are just like, oh my goodness, they're really not that exciting or fun. But I have to say, I found Nekroz to be one of the most fun decks that I have ever played on stream. And if you look at the amount of decks that I have, it's a lot. This kind of was exhilarating, very similar to like when I play X Sabers, or when I pull off like a really savage OTK with like Harpies, but generally that only involves like 1 card or anything. But with the Nekroz deck, it was legitimately fun, and I'm wondering if this if this was part of the reason that people played this deck so much. Obviously it was dominant and the deck was extremely good, but it's surprisingly a lot of fun. Now, part of that could be because I've never competitively played a ritual-based deck, and that's really because throughout the game's history, there haven't been that many great ritual-based decks. I mean, the ritual summon is not something that Konami has ever put a ton of time into. There was no series, no Yu-Gi-Oh anime or manga for the ritual summon. There is no ritual dimension. It never really got its time in the sun, and after years of kind of being neglected, you've got Nekroz, and it feels very retro because it's like, whoa, rituals are gonna take over the game? Like, really? Come on now. But obviously they adjusted the deck to power creep. They made it so that the deck could shit on special summon monsters from the extra deck. The spells were searchable, and they could not be just searchable by these guys, but they could search themselves. And then their effects were copies of some of the most powerful synchros of all time. See the Dual Terminal 1 or 2 storyline. So Nekroz is actually a really, really fun deck, and I've got to say, if you guys are looking for a deck right now that is a lot of fun and doesn't cost that much money, you might actually want to consider this, at least until Breaker of Shadows comes out. I mean, I'm not saying that this is like a long-term solution to your woes if you're like me and you don't want to play anything Pendulum, but for like the next month, if you actually don't want to spend any money, try this deck out on Dueling Network, because it was surprisingly good and the power plays are there. Now, I was a bit of a bastard. You can see with the build, we do have the brilliant fusions and the instant fusions, so it is kind of dick riding the meta a little bit, where those cards are just put pretty much in everything. But I played against even like some Performages and Pals and like some meta decks, and I did really well, because like the Nekroz of Trishula is still ridiculous. The Nekroz of Unicorn, you still can summon it with like a Valkyrus in hand, and know that unless they were Geki, all these Pendulum decks have to go to their extra deck to do anything. And if this dude says no to all of that, then you're pretty much gold. Nobody runs Breakthrough Skill or Book of Moon in the main deck for the most part, excuse me. And then my second part of this video was not just addressing how fun Nekroz is. And actually, you know what? Before I get to the second part, there's a really good metaphor for my experience with Nekroz, because I kind of went into the stream thinking, oh boy, this deck's going to be boring, but you know what, I'm going to play it because I said I would. This was actually very similar to the first date I ever went on. It was with this Asian girl named Karen. I think I was like 21 at the time, and I'd never been on a date before, and I wasn't really sure what to expect. My friend just, you know, I said, can you give me any advice? And he said, make sure you never let the conversation end. And she was kind of one of those eccentric girls who's like a kind of a low-key bitch. Actually, it wasn't even low-key. She's kind of a bitch, but nice to like the 10% of people that she likes. And even that 10%, she's not that nice to them. But, you know, I wanted to fuck her, so I was like, all right, I can deal with this. But at the end of the night, I ended up having a really good time. And it was kind of surprising. And that's exactly how I felt about Nekroz. I didn't have much expectations. I knew of the deck because I had played it a lot. And then, you know, I ended up having a really good time. But I want to know what you guys think of this deck from a competitive standpoint. I feel like the blue engine is still really good, although summoning these bastards, like without Shuri, it is, I'm not gonna lie, it is it's more difficult than you would think, because when you summon with Gishki Vision, it's an okay play. It's not the greatest play unless you're summoning Trishula or you're summoning Valk and you plan on drawing a bunch of cards with like you know, maybe using this or like Trick Clown or something where you know you're gonna make advantage. You know, this card is like, you kind of have to play it because there's no Sharit. They need to give the deck back Sharit, because even with Sharit, it still wouldn't be like the best deck. But I guess this is just a Nekroz discussion. I, you know, spit a lot of vitriol towards the deck in the past, and I guess I felt kind of silly because, you know what, the deck is actually really fun and it's still kind of competitive. And what do you guys think that this deck could do pre-Breaker of Shadows? Because after Breaker of Shadows and Infinity comes out, I don't think that Nekroz have any chance, because Nekroz can't play back row, and unfortunately, if your opponent opens Infinity plus Notice, like, you have no way of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In this deck unless you're main decking 3 Nekos, and even then, getting past Infinity is, like, still too much of a struggle, in my opinion. But anyways, thank you guys for watching as always.